With Tom Brady's retirement, there's only one conversation to have. Who else is in the top 10 of the all-time quarterbacks in the NFL? And some, whether you like it or not, don't have Ben Roethlisberger in that list. What's going on, everybody? I'm Noah Strackbine. Thank you for jumping on to Steelers to Go, your daily to-go cup of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/allsteelerstalk or anywhere you get your podcasts. And today, I'm going to talk about a debate that seems to be circulating around the NFL. Who is in the top 10 all-time in quarterbacks? There's a long list, and I think that for the most part, we could all agree on a few names. Tom Brady is likely number one in most eyes. Joe Montana is probably number three. Johnny Unitas could toss himself on that list, and so could Peyton Manning. Then there's the questionable ones that I think still find their way on there for most, if not all people. Dan Marino, maybe John Elway. And then after that, they get a little debatable. You have names like Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, Steve Young, Ben Roethlisberger, Patrick Mahomes. We're going to talk about one list in general, and we'll go off of that one just as a ranking point, and then we'll go back and see if or not Ben Roethlisberger should be on this list. He's not, just so that everybody's aware. It's NFL.com or NFL Network's Greg Rosenthal's full rankings. Tom Brady, Johnny Unitas, Joe Montana, Peyton Manning, Dan Marino, Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, Steve Young, John Elway, Patrick Mahomes. I want to toss this out there right now. I think Patrick Mahomes is already on this list, but I think if he wins a Super Bowl in a week, there is no denying that he is on this list, and chances are he moves up a spot. Number 10, I think, is a good place for him right now, but if you want to toss him there at 7, I'd feel good about it if he wins the second Super Bowl. What Patrick Mahomes has done in such a short time is unbelievable. And just watching him, you could pick this from a number of ways. You know, there's the Aaron Rodgers, oh my gosh, nobody plays the quarterback position and has that talent argument. Patrick Mahomes smokes that argument, and therefore he's in that list. The fact that he has a Super Bowl helps. The fact that he's been to 2 helps even more. The fact that he could win his third, and if I had to guess he's going to, that helps even more. I think there's names on here, though, that maybe Ben got snubbed for. And the big 3, obviously, are Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, and Steve Young. Let's start here. Steve Young is not in the top 10 of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. I'm sorry. He's just not. He had a legendary career, and do I think he's top 15? Yes, I do. I would argue that he is closer to 10 than 15 as well. But do I think that he's number 8? I do not think that he's number 8. The fact that Joe Montana did what he could do and Steve Young continued to carry that legacy, that's great. And everything's fine about that argument. But to have one Super Bowl and to find yourself at number 8 doing almost half of what the guy before you did, and maybe just as much, maybe, as some of the other guys very low on this list, no, sorry. I don't put Steve Young in that list. That doesn't mean that Ben Roethlisberger replaces him, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but I don't put Steve Young on that list for starters. Number 2, John Elway at number 9 is ridiculous. Number 6, I'm putting John Elway at number 6, and I think he's got a good fight to pass Dan Marino at number 5. People could say whatever you want. You win 2 Super Bowls and you go to 5 of them, you know what you're doing at quarterback. He's the Josh Allen before Josh Allen ever existed. He's the Ben Roethlisberger before Ben Roethlisberger ever existed. This guy knew how to play football. He was the most physical quarterback possibly of all time, and he literally put his body on the line time and time again to go out and win games. John Elway is the ultimate competitor. I have so much respect for that man. And because of that, I say he is easily in the top 6. In my eyes, he's top 5. Then there's Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. I think Brett Favre could go on there. I think Brett Favre had a Hall of Fame career and is a guy that, yeah, there's an argument that he's one of the greatest ever and he should be higher than maybe I have him. But I think he sits there right about 8, maybe right about where he is at 7, maybe 9, bottom of the top 10. And I feel good about that. I think he's the one that yeah, people are going to argue that one and say, Brett Favre, really? Are you serious? Or they're going to argue it and say, yeah, of course, Brett Favre's in the top 10. That's no questions asked. That's a good place to be. And that means that you should be closer to the bottom than the top. 7 or 8 feels like a good spot. Then there's the big one, Aaron Rodgers. And people are going to debate this one till the end of time. But number 6, really, number 6 on the list, it just doesn't feel right to me. His one Super Bowl does come over Ben Roethlisberger, and you do have to give him a nod for that. That's a good one. But the Steelers legend, Ben Roethlisberger, has 2 Super Bowl rings, and already that puts him ahead in the biggest category there is. Do you win championships? Ben Roethlisberger does. Aaron Rodgers, well, he did it once on a really good team in the time where he was hands down the best quarterback in football. But he only did it once. On top of that, Ben Roethlisberger sits 4 spots ahead of him on the all-time passing list. He only sits 3 spots behind him in passing touchdowns. And it just feels like, yeah, Aaron Rodgers has had one phenomenal career. And Aaron Rodgers, technically, physically maybe, is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, passing quarterback of all time. What this man can do with a football in his hand is unreal. But there's points in an NFL career that people overshadow, but you can't overshadow them when it comes to playing quarterback. Tom Brady has 7 Super Bowls. Why? Because he knows how to win Super Bowls, because he's got that ultimate competitor side to him that makes him the greatest quarterback of all time. If that's going to be the nod for him, if that's going to be the checklist and where we start this argument and end it for Tom Brady, we have to have that same argument for everybody else. Aaron Rodgers has almost never had that. He's always taken the money over anything else, and I think everybody in the NFL should be paid way more than they are. But Aaron Rodgers, he doesn't win. He doesn't take teams to the Super Bowl. He has that connotation to him that, yeah, Aaron could get you to the playoffs, but chances are he's not going to get you much farther than that. Peyton Manning had that same argument for a while. He ended it with 4 Super Bowl runs. 2 of them he won, and that felt good. But Aaron Rodgers doesn't have that argument to him. It's the Dan Marino argument. It's the reason that I believe John Elway is ahead of Dan Marino, is because Dan Marino was a phenomenal quarterback, but he's not a winning quarterback. Yeah, he had that perfect season. Actually, he didn't have that perfect season. John Elway, in my eyes, easily surpasses him. Ben Roethlisberger, in my eyes, easily surpasses Aaron Rodgers. And it's because of that winning argument. Now, where does he sit? Let's re-rank these. Tom Brady, number 1. Johnny Unitas, number 2 is not terrible, but I'm going to go Joe Montana, number 2, and I'm going to go Johnny Unitas, number 3. Peyton Manning, number 4. I like that one. Number 5, I'm going John Elway. Number 6, I'm going Dan Marino. Number 7, I'm going Brett Favre. Number 8, I'm going Ben Roethlisberger. Number 9, I'm going Aaron Rodgers. And number 10, I'm going Patrick Mahomes. And I can tell you right now that if Patrick Mahomes wins a Super Bowl on Sunday, in my eyes, he moves above Aaron Rodgers and Ben Roethlisberger, which is still okay. Ben sits there at 9. Aaron sits there at 10. Patrick Mahomes sits there at 8. And that's how the NFL should be. You know, there's a reason that everybody argued growing up as a kid, Joe Montana is the greatest quarterback of all time. Joe Montana is the greatest quarterback of all time. And then Tom Brady came around. Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time. Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time. This is what's supposed to happen. It's supposed to constantly be a revolving door. You cannot put yourself in a bubble and constantly stay there. It's the NFL. Talent always gets better, always improves. The league is always evolving. And because of that, the lists are always changing. But to say Ben's outside the top 10 doesn't make sense to me. There aren't 10 quarterbacks in NFL history who are better than Ben Roethlisberger. There never was 10 quarterbacks in the NFL that were better than Ben Roethlisberger, and there weren't 5 in his generation that were better than him. People make the argument, oh, Drew Brees, well, Aaron Rodgers. Nope, sorry. Those guys were great, and the physical attributes were phenomenal. But nobody's talking about Josh Allen being a top 10 quarterback, even though he has some of the greatest physical ability a quarterback's ever had. Nobody's talking about Lamar Jackson being a top 10 quarterback because he's the greatest running quarterback of all time. Same with maybe Joe Burrow right now. The reason is because there's more to football than being able to throw a ball extremely well and do things that others cannot do. You have to be able to win, especially if you play quarterback. If Tom Brady could do it with 7 rings, if Joe Montana can do it with 4, if Ben Roethlisberger can do it with 2, if John Elway can do it with 2, if Peyton Manning can do it with 2, all different quarterbacks who are collectively together on one thing, they are winners. That's what puts Ben in that list. That's what puts Ben so high. It's what will continue to carry Ben Roethlisberger, is the fact that there are times in a football game where nobody did it better than Big Ben. He's top 10. I would say pretty easy right now. He's top 5 all time in his generation. No questions asked. Poor arguments if you're making them against him. And yeah, there's a debate, and it's a good debate right now. And I'm glad that the Pittsburgh Steelers legend is in there. Do I think he's going to be in every list? No. But that's okay, because that's good for us to sit down and argue and say, hey, look, maybe he's not there right now in your eyes. Let me talk to you about how he should be. And I think we'll win that debate almost every time.